A while ago, I was out walking with my wife and my son in a beautiful town called Uppingham, and I found a second-hand book/antique shop called Loros, and I walked in, and I walked up to the books, found the poetry shelf, started gazing, and came across a slender/garish hardback called Verses on the Way to the Pub. So I picked it up, not expecting much, and I opened it and I read the first poem called The Gladdening Stars, and I was quite taken by it. So I bought the book, home I went. And over time, I began to read the poems, and to my surprise, I found myself quite amused and at times moved by what was in there. So I think I did what anyone, I presume, would do at this point. You know, I was intrigued, I was very much enjoying the work, so I looked him up. I typed in, went straight to Google, Richard O'Donoghue, and I could find absolutely nothing at all. Not a word, nothing on the man or his life or his work. In this day and age. And that's really where this starts, I suppose, because I'm hoping over the following 12 months that, with your help, ideally, I can put together something of a portrait of the man and his work. And what I would really like is in 12 months' time, late July, to gather and to celebrate his life and his work. But why? What's the point? Why bother? I want to start, I suppose, by saying, for the record, I'm not making extravagant claims for Richard O'Donoghue. I don't think he's the holy grail of lost poetic voices. I don't think he's some buried would-be canonical giant. But I do think his is a voice worth celebrating, and I read him and I feel I'm in the presence of a man enamoured with literature and with life, and I feel the happier for it. He has a kind of playful voice and an easy sincerity that strikes me as belonging to someone who just walks with vigour and with delight. Whether it's pursuing a lover, as he often seems to be, or just walking to the pub with friends, he often, in fact he writes in one of his poems, and I think it neatly sums up certainly his perception of the world from what I can see. He writes about being struck by the fact that common things are suddenly divine. And his poems, to me, when read together, they often feel like secular prayers to the beauty and the joy of love and life. And in truth, I think I've found myself quite moved by his writing, not simply because of what he and it is, but also what it's not. And what I mean by that is I find, or have found, that a lot of modern poetry, for better or worse, is very much socially and politically charged and willfully complex or daringly innovative or desperate to break with convention. And there's nothing wrong with that, of course, but when I read Richard O'Donoghue, I feel like I'm in the presence of someone breaking bread with life. And again, I'm the happier for it. And it's the final poem in the collection that I think really won me over in the first place. It's called A Walk to the Pub, and it just does describe him, Richard O'Donoghue, walking to the pub to meet his friends. And the final three lines, I think, neatly encapsulate the way he writes generally. They're simple and they're rich in equal measure. And the final line makes a reference to a pub, I believe, well, of course it is, called The Rising Sun. And that strikes me as a wonderful place in 12 months' time for us all, or maybe just me, to gather and to celebrate the man and his life. I have no idea if that pub exists. I did look it up. There seems to be quite a few called The Rising Sun, but I have no idea where they are or whether or not the particular pub he's referencing when he was writing is still there now. No idea. The book was published in 1993, but it kind of reads like an anthologized collection of poems written throughout his life. So God knows what year that particular poem was written in, and by extension, whether or not that pub still exists. I would love to find it. Right, so I can find absolutely nothing online about Richard O'Donoghue, but there is some information in the book itself. Okay, firstly, there's the dedication to his godsons, Piers and Timothy. On the sleeve, we're told that he, I think, grew up in a small town or village called Abinger Hammer. I know he served as a young adult in the Royal Indian Army Corps, and actually in the book there's a series of poems based on his experience in the services. I know also that he worked for many years, all of his years, I'm not too sure, at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, and that he lived in somewhere in London. I know he married an actress, but beyond that, I have no idea if he's even still alive. What I would like is to try and shed some light on that life. So I'm looking for anybody, friends, family, acquaintances, maybe even just someone who has read and enjoyed his work. Please, if you fit the bill, do get in contact and I'll do my best to respond as quick as I can. I'd like to flesh out the portrait of the man and his work. It might be, it's most probable, I'd say, that this goes absolutely nowhere, shot in the dark, heard and seen by precisely nobody. But I live in hope, and it would mean a great deal to me if it did go somewhere. Whoever he is, sincerely, I thank him from afar. So, without further ado, Richard O'Donoghue. Who are you?